head if I don't have my umbrella. So, good morning, Dr. Art.
Morning. How is everybody?
Doing,
Good, good.
doing great. How
And
are you
you?
doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. At least you asked me back, so I must not have messed up the last time.
No, you did. We loved you.
I know we all love you.
Oh, good.
Your positive vibes. You're smart. But you're there. You're on the front line working with the people. You came up with some really unique ideas. We were talking about parking spaces today, actually. So
It's a big deal. That is a very big deal for doctors, and
told
we're
you guys.
giving it up.
But here's what happened. Our bariatric doctor said, give up your front door parking place so that you walk more and lose weight, right? So
Mhm.
I go, so you mean as the president, I need to give up my parking place that I like? And he goes, just move
You
it. Right?
know, back in the day, the closer parking spot was the high valued one. Well, if you want to be healthy, the high valued spaces might be the furthest ones now. It's a shift in mentality and shift in society. It's a great shift to make. And I'm used to parking that far away now. I kind of like it. It's that, it gives you time to think before you walk through the door too. So there's
Fresh
a lot of good things
air.
about it.
Yes, a lot of. I love that. It's that morning air. If I'm going to work, and if I drive to an office, if I do park far away, I love that fresh air in the morning. And like you said, my cobwebs kind of wipe away, and I'm especially if it's a cool morning, I'm ready to go. So, but yeah. So, how are things at your office this week?
Well, we had a few setbacks as far as coronavirus. We had, I believe, 5 new patients tested positive. One of the problems is that you're hearing about the food processing plants having outbreaks. Well, we have a Smithfield Foods pork processing plant in our town. It's the big moneymaker for our town. It's one of our biggest industries.
It is.
And I think they had one patient that tested positive a few weeks ago, and now we're seeing who they infected because I believe we had 9 people test positive at the plant this week. But the plant's doing everything they can to prevent it. It's just that's the natural spread of coronavirus. So luckily, the food supply is still safe, and we're not hearing about them having to euthanize hogs or anything like that we process in our town. So the food supply is still safe as far as what's coming out of our factories. But those patients, just as much as we are putting ourselves on the front lines, are putting themselves at risk just by going to work. And when we open up and start bringing people back to work and things, these are the things we're going to see, and we're just going to have to deal with it. We're just seeing it earlier in the food supply because those people are still working.
So that's curious to me about the people still going to work. Are there work policies put in place?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these are things we need to get used to because as we open up again, we can't just open up back to normal because coronavirus is still going to be out there. We don't want everybody getting it all at once. So work policy, like we put our work policies in place right off the bat. We're all wearing masks all the time. We're wearing face shields now, full protective equipment when we're seeing patients outside of the office with fevers and chills. We're still locking down the office from people who are sick. So we've changed our processes, and we're going to have to do that for a while. So businesses that plan on opening as lockdowns get released, they're going to need to come up with their plan on how they're going to continue social distancing because that still has to continue because that's still what slows down the curve. And we're not just going to open up and let all our hard work go to waste by letting everybody get infected again. So the businesses have to come up with a plan. Movie theaters are going to have to space each other out I'm kind of vested in the movie theater situation because I was a background actor in Halloween Kills, and that comes out in October. And if they don't open the movie theaters up, I won't see myself on the big screen. So I got to see it on the big screen. So I want them to figure out their social distancing plan before October.
So I'm in the movie industry a little bit myself, and the red carpet scene is great. So let me know when your opening night is. I would love to come to opening night.
Well, I'm just a background actor, so I'm not going to go to opening night, but it opens October 16th if the world stays or the world gets a little bit back to normal.
Okay, I think we will. I think people just need to relax a little bit. Don't be so eager. Like you said, get those policies in place. Even if they're, I had this talk with a woman who was really upset because they weren't letting her reopen her salon yet. And, but they were letting other businesses open, but not her salon. And I go, okay, whoa, stop right now. Write a policy and your standards of how you're going to reopen. Don't take no for an answer. You write the policies and standards. They might use it and adapt it for other salons, but you send it to the governor and you say, these are my policies and standards of how I'm going to reopen with COVID. You're not going to tell me I'm not. You tell me whether these are wrong. If you want to have a doctor look at them or a pandemic person look at them. But for each person that comes in, we're all going to wear masks. We're all going to wear gloves. When they leave, I'm going to wipe everything down and sanitize the area. Because salons can do this. Each chair in most salons are more than 10 feet apart because they don't want each other hearing each other. Mm-hmm. Trust me, your salon person is your therapist. They don't want the stories getting out. So it's easy to do. They just need to put their policy in place. What do you think?
Oh, good. Well, that's the next phase of all this is now that we've figured out that social distancing did work and slowed down the curve, and we want to keep the curve slowed, the next phase is to teach businesses and to have those policies into place. You don't need every business to come up with a plan, but your government needs to say, okay, this is what we expect from a salon. This is what we expect from a restaurant. This is what we expect. You know, the salon, one thing you have to deal with is, what do you do with all that hair? That hair is contaminated hair with coronavirus, possibly. So you have to come up with a policy on what you're going to do with that hair.
Yeah, and in hair, we don't cover it up when we put the shields on. The shield only covers here. That's I have an issue with that because hair gets the viruses.
In Hong Kong, we have a salon chain called QB, and it's something I've never seen anywhere else in the world. Whatever hair falls off a customer is dusted off, swept to one side where there is a little port which is attached to a vacuum.
Oh, yeah.
And it just zips off, you know. All the combs, all the cloth that they tie around you, you know, around your neck. I've only seen the male things. I've not seen the female ones. And but that salon treats both men and women. This is what they do. So you have no hair sort of floating around on the floor. The guy who does it before he lets the next person in, he dusts down everything, sweeps it to that little port there on the floor, and the vacuum takes it off. And even they don't use water, so even on your hair, they just suck off the hair that is loose after they've cut it off with a vacuum thing.
One of the hairstylists I go to, he has one of those vacuums. He bought it from Amazon. It was only $60, and he puts it right next to where I get my hair cut. He kicks it, and then the vacuum kicks right on, and the hair gets taken right up. And it's only $60. That's a very simple way of taking care of this.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many solutions, and people just need to think about forward. How do I protect not just my clients, but people? The other thing I said that's probably very important, especially today, is to collect all of their contact information, especially if they're not your regular client. True. And make sure you have a copy of their driver's license so that you can, if something is found to be contaminated, you can contact them. That to me is probably the most important.
Absolutely.
So in India, we are doing a practice where we are buying vegetables and fruits only with those vendors who are regular. We are not buying vegetables and fruits and maybe groceries who we have never saw that person earlier, basically, during this COVID, because you never know who is that guy, basically.
Yeah.
And secondly, whenever we are going to buy anything essential, maybe anywhere else, everyone is carrying their identity card, and with that identity card, they can track that person. In fact, they're writing down the numbers of the car or how you getting there and all those things. So we are trying to track each and every person, whoever is moving around, and that's the way forward. And also, when you talk about hairs, lot of people in India, they use hairs in their farming, basically. So because hairs has a lot of carbon, and it has some kind of things which is good for farming. So they put that hair.
Find one in seconds. Or don't go to Fiverr. Wait.
So they put it inside that.
I was trying to pull up a tracker, but it pulled up an advertisement.
I was thinking about your food factory, the food processing factory. I think they will have to upgrade to the kind of factories that you have in pharma industry with laminar airflow, positive air pressure, and that kind of thing, so that you don't have things getting into the food,
Oh,
especially.
this place is very clean. They have all of that already. So this place has already been prepared that way. The last thing you need is one food poisoning to come out of your factory. We have had, this is a pork producing plant where there's trichinosis and all those. They have, since the 20 years I've been living here, they have not had one episode of that.
Wow.
Yeah, Smithfield has been very, very strict. They did sell to the Chinese, own them now, because they sold, I think, back in 2015. But the reason why they bought them was because they were so strict and never had any diseases, because they lost all of their pig farms to viruses and diseases. And so the practices were of interest, right? But I am curious about if it does contaminate the meat, when we cook it, will it cook out?
Studies have shown yes. The virus doesn't survive heat. We already know that from the studies of sunlight, etc. And then especially if you do ingest it, you don't get coronavirus from your gut. So it's perfectly fine to eat food that has coronavirus on it. So I would recommend, if you don't know who the person is and they have coronavirus and you get the vegetables, you wash them off, of course. Wash your hands right afterward. But if you eat it, you're going to be perfectly safe, as long as you don't stick it up against your nose and go.
And I do that with my fruit, especially grapefruit. Oh my God, I love the smell of grapefruit and lemons, and I will smell them.
It's not for
I will never
smoking.
smell another fruit again.
After you cut it open, the inside's probably fine. So
Okay, but I'm not going to do it now. There goes my fruit smelling days.
I think you have stronger
I'm
stomach
breathing
acid that will kill any COVID.
yeah.
I used to think I was just breathing in the vitamin C from I love grapefruits and lemons. There's just something about that one. Or watermelon. Oh my gosh. When I smell a watermelon being cut open, I am just in heaven. But but these are good things to know. Knowledge is going to protect us, right? If we understand the nature of the beast, we can protect ourselves. And that's what this conversation is about, is how do we further protect ourselves, build our immunity, get lots of rest, exercise, get a lot of sunshine, cook your food well, cook it. But we should have always been doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not eating sushi anymore for a long time because I want to wait this virus out. And I love sushi. I'm a big sushi fan, but
I'm still gonna eat it. My stomach will tell you, yeah.
Well, because your body can digest the COVID, you just can't smell it.
Yeah, and you're using chopsticks. You're not touching your chopsticks to your face or your nose. So chopsticks, boom, you're fine.
All right. So you just solved that problem for me. I just didn't think about that. That's right. Our stomachs can't get it. So there you go, folks. I mean, no, this is exciting news because, I've kind of been afraid of like some of the foods and things like that. So no, this is very exciting news. What else are in the horizon? I've noticed that North Carolina has gone up on the scale of, on the COVID rates. I noticed that they're breaking it down by zip code. Is there a reason for that?
Well, we know geography is a big deal. New York City versus San Diego versus here. We're lucky in my county. We still have a 0% death rate from coronavirus. Now we have 81 cases that have tested positive. We've had several hospitalizations, but because people spread out and we're protecting the most vulnerable and trying to keep them out of the office if they don't need to be, we have a 0% death rate in our county. Now, if you go to a county next door, you've got 2 or 3 who've died after 117 have been infected. It really depends on their comorbidities, their obesity, their other medical problems, the situation. Luckily, because of what we've done as a community and everybody taking care of each other, we haven't had it where people are dying because there's no ventilator, or people are dying because they were having a heart attack and there's no ICU bed for them. Those things have been protected against, but that's not out of the woods yet. So the distancing, yes, you want people to get back to their jobs and the economy to get back to normal. You want less domestic violence. You want people having less mental health problems and suicide rates. Those are going to start coming up because now that we've been doing this for more than a month, we're going to start seeing those numbers start coming up. So we got to protect against that too. Most importantly, devastating the economy. All of us primary care practices are suffering from not seeing as many patients because people don't want to come in, and trying to come up with ideas on how to keep people safe. But the bottom line is we have to open up again. It's the policies that we need to do to open up again that'll be key to keep people from getting more sick or having no hospital bed. That'll really raise the death rate. So by showing it by county, number one, you're seeing maybe where you want to live in the future with any future pandemics. You're seeing that being spread out has value. You're seeing that cities are vulnerable to not only pandemics but violent crime and social distress. You're seeing people going out to the governor's office with guns on saying, we demand that the state be open. And it was perfectly safe. It's a demonstration. They weren't ever going to use the guns, but the state troopers were all there surrounding the governor's office.
Come on, bring a mask. Don't bring a gun.
It's a show of, I understand it. It's a show of freedom, and they were never going to use it. They were going to just show how judicious and safe you can be. But it does feel terroristic to some people. To me, I feel safe when I know a person has gotten their concealed carry permit and they say that they're going to follow the law to a T. And if they have their gun with them, they're going to protect me. So I'm of different opinion.
Leave it at home, okay?
But it's a show of freedom. This is like you said. This isn't the other countries. For instance, Sweden. They very much trust their government. So when the government says, "Yeah, we'll let you guys decide on your own, but we encourage you to social distance," 50% of the transportation sector is still not being used. The people are doing social distancing on their own because they trust the government. So you don't have to put a measure like we do here in the United States saying we have to be there for a month and, almost put in some law enforcement. And that's the other thing I'm thinking about. When this all happens, say, we had that one person who walked through a Walmart saying he had coronavirus and was licking things and stuff. He made a YouTube video and then he got arrested. This was on the western part of North Carolina. How are we going to police that? Because, some people are going to say, I don't care if I got coronavirus. I'm going to infect as many people as I can because immunity is good. Well, do we get law enforcement involved with that? Do we put them in jail? What are going to be the social policies regarding people who want to disobey or people who don't? We're talking about making apps so that people who have coronavirus know who they've been connected with. We're talking about apps saying, okay, I got coronavirus, so now I'm immune. That becomes like that Black Mirror episode about social score, where if you have an app that says, oh, here's my social score, I got coronavirus, I can go wherever I want. Well, that's not egalitarian either in the United States. So there's a lot of social policies you have to come up with before you do a full open, because otherwise you'll have a lot of social disorder.
So the thing that I have is, hopefully we are going to work on the situation where the mortality rate will start declining with coronavirus. Unfortunately, we're still seeing a high mortality rate. I'm sure that there are other diseases that cause just as much. But to me, in law, because I deal my other life, on the other side of the TV show, I deal with domestic violence. I have an invention that I'm launching for domestic violence. And so that has concerned me during this time. And we generally will see a rise in that during times like this. But I think when you deal with law and arresting people, it's what you do with knowledge and the intent.
Correct.
Right.
And that's interesting.
Then the cause, what happened, right? The cause and the effect, right? So what was your knowledge at the time that you did it? I know I have COVID. What was your intent when you walked in there and licked everything? Was it to make everybody sick, or, were you just being a jerk? But that counts. And then how many people did you infect? And then you have to be liable, right? Then they make what your liability is. Are there laws written for this yet? No, but there are similar laws that can make them very, very accountable.
Yep. I'd love to hear about that app, because I was chairman of the board of UCare Incorporated here at Sampson County, which is our domestic violence and sexual assault program. We went from about 2 to 4 people going into the shelter a week. We're up to 36 in a 2-week period.
Yeah, and it's climbing. And there is one thing, when you talk about the safest city in the world, when people call me and say, my daughter is a victim of domestic violence, I tell them immediately, move them to this one particular town, because they took domestic violence into their own hands and they reduced it to 0 fatalities and 0 repeat incidences, 0. And I know that they break every law in the world, but they've reduced one of the most heinous crimes. There's 12 million victims per year, 12 million females. That's females, 24 children, and about 6 to 8 males that are victims a year, and nobody does anything. Mine isn't an app. It is a full-blown patent invention with tracking devices that allows you to key in the data for the protective order. But we know protective orders don't work. They actually inflame, but these will. And what it does is it makes everybody accountable for their movements. So if the victim is lying, we're going to know. But if you remove the device or tamper with it, an alarm is sent, real-time alerts are sent to the police and to the victim, and data is collected for court. If they've breached the order in any way, we can backtrack the tracking, we can show the data, and a real-time report is generated to the police so they can intervene, and so that the victim can seek safety. The victim is notified as well. It all works. We just things happen, and I'm not able to launch at this time, but it is. We want a beta, and we're raising money to beta it. It is a phenomenal tool. We're going to be able to utilize it for at-risk youths. So we're not always putting them in jail or putting them in prison, and also to help prevent reoccurring crimes. That's the key.
Yeah. You already mentioned it. There's more deaths from domestic violence than the flu and coronavirus every year.
Yep.
But how much attention are we putting to it? So for me, having my master's in public health, I think I save more lives doing my domestic violence work than I do with even talking about coronavirus right now.
You do. The only thing you're doing is helping us prevent the spread so that we can get back to our lives. That's all this is about. But and until we get control of it, fear is the biggest problem we have right now. And that's one of the things we wanted to do, is reduce fear with knowledge, give people some ideas and tools to work with, so that we can think about going back to work. Like that woman was real upset about not being able to go back to work. And then I gave her the idea of, well, just write your own policies. Nobody's writing policies right now. Let's start establishing standards. As far as the domestic violence, I would love to work with you. It is an honor. Thank you so much for your work, because people don't understand it is the silent crime. It doesn't get any attention. And just recently, a friend of mine's close friend was just killed. The girl and the father both were killed because he was there trying to protect her. And this has been weighing on my mind because I know this is a problem. So thank you for your work.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of collateral damage right now coronavirus is going to kill more people with domestic violence, if you ask me, because the collateral damage, when the violence happens, it's not just the person who's surviving the violence that has the damage. It's the people around them, like the gunshot wounds to their co-workers, or the attacks to the boyfriends, or that kind of thing. There's always more collateral damage than the person who's being attacked in the first place.
Right. And people don't understand that about domestic violence. When I built my tool, it wasn't about just protecting the victim themselves. It was about protecting their families too. So the device is worn by the family members. We program in address. I built it almost foolproof. Not everything's 100% foolproof, but I designed it so that we monitor the cars, right? That they can't get, because that is a big attack zone, is a person's car. You can't watch it all the time. It's not on video camera. Then I protect their families' homes. I protect the schools, their workplaces. But what's really cool is you can always map where they both are at all times. If they both go to the same concert, the victim can then choose, I don't want to be in this building. I'm going to leave, right? If we notice a pattern, this is the great thing about AI. If we notice a pattern, then we can say, hey, there's a pattern here. Somebody needs to talk to this person.
Yeah, that's wonderful use of technology. In fact, that'll save more lives for the law enforcement, because you'll know it'll be a preemptive attack on preventing the violence before law enforcement is having to come in when it's at its highest temperature point.
Well, a lot of people don't know this, and I guess I do because of the research I've done over the years, is that it's the most dangerous crime an officer's dispatched for. And by law, they're no longer allowed to be dispatched for domestic violence on their own.
Right.
They're not. And sometimes by accident they are. I have a T-shirt that I wear from one of the officers who was killed by somebody who was known for domestic violence. And I guess when he took the call, he didn't know it, but he was killed. And so, but it's a dangerous crime. I want to get this launched again and get it going. I know it works. We've demoed it and had everything ready to go, but things stop for a reason.
Well, I'll be glad to help you and get the word out.
Thank you. Thank you. But not just get the word out. Maybe we can work together in raising the money to make it happen.
Sure.
So some of the things we talk about on our show are like we have business and startup days. And one of the things I talk about is in raising money, there's a word called MUSH. You cannot get money for these kind of research. And that's municipality revenue driven, university revenue driven, school revenue driven, and hospital revenue driven. Those things are the hardest things to raise capital for because they expect grants to cover them. But grants are very hard to achieve, even with a tool like this. And you mentioned something, you called it collateral damage. We're just, unfortunately, it's not taken serious because it's just women and children mostly that are being killed. And the only time you hear about the crime is when a celebrity is impacted.
Right. Yep. And that's that, I've already had, I have protective measures in place because I've had multiple men say, "You're stealing my wife from me." And then they accuse me of having an affair because I'm working with the domestic violence shelter, even though I have nothing to do with the situation, but they're coming after me too. And I just understand the threats and I'm not even a close family member. I'm just the guy who was helping out the domestic violence shelter. So I can understand all the other people and how they feel, and I'm even that much further remote from it and still having my life threatened over it.
And you are dead on about that. And so one of the reasons why I incorporated where I incorporated is they're allowing me a extra layer shell so that we don't get attacked. Because, the offenders always go after everyone that's making them angry. But you say that I was attacked by an offender in the courtroom after the hearing. Mm-hmm. I was with the victim and she didn't want me there, but I refused to let her go by herself. And when we walked out of the courtroom, he attacked us. And she froze. You know how victims are. They have severe PTSD and they might, kill for their children, but for whatever reason, that offender just makes them freeze. And I threw a punch at him. I screamed for help. So she tells the story better than I do. I shoved her back into the courtroom and screamed for the bailiff. But I threw a punch at him and he ducked and took off. I don't think he expected that. But like you said, they blame you. Like you're there to help, and odds are you're there to calm the situation down and maybe make it better. But they blame you, and it's scary.
So just to explain that freezing reflex, that's called the Totselian reflex. That's like a possum when it gets attacked, it goes into a dead pose. So the Totselian reflex is when a person freezes and if they're act dead, then the person might stop and say, "Wait, I'm not going to attack someone who's not attacking me." And it's very common. The reason I know about that is when I learned hypnosis, I have a lot of people who either have a frozen hand or their body freezes and they go to all these neurologists and they think it's Parkinson's, and Parkinson's never shows up. And what you find out is they've had a trauma in their life where their life was threatened. So their life has been a Totselian reflex. Anytime there's any stress, I know a lot of patients have had a Totselian reflex with this coronavirus. They just go to bed and they curl up and they just act dead. So the Totselian reflex is a survival reflex that a lot of people who've had domestic violence do, and they just freeze, even though the natural response would be the adrenaline would shoot up and they'd punch them just like you did. Well, she had been through it so much that she's at the most base response from the limbic system to act like a possum. So I hypnotize that out of people. I do a lot of PTSD hypnosis, and people who are frozen up. I had one lady she went to a neurologist who suggested me to hypnotize her, and she looked like she was having a seizure all the time. But what it was her Totselian reflex was so bad, she looked like she was shaking with seizures, but her EEGs never looked abnormal. So after 2 hypnosis sessions, she never had a seizure ever again because it was the Totselian reflex.
Wow. I think that's awesome because one of the reasons why so many women die in the domestic violence is because of that. They can't fight back. I don't know what it is. Some of them will try to run. But I think that's the reason why she had been beaten so much over the years. And because she's just bigger than me. Like she's a gorgeous woman, but she just couldn't fight. But I know several other victims. Again, if somebody's trying to hurt their kids, they'll kill them. But for whatever reasons, when their husbands or their spouse or their significant other goes after them, they just freeze and they get the mess beat out of them. Yeah. And I'm going to send them all to you for hypnotizing because we're going to do this program, right? So we'll do a system. You get the bracelets on so that we can track, and then we're going to hypnotize you so you don't panic, you react, and I studied Taekwondo. I think that's why I threw a punch before I thought about anything else. My reactive measure was knock this guy off his feet. She couldn't believe it. She goes, "You're going to get yourself killed because he's going to fight back, the next time." But he stays away from me. He absolutely stays away from me. But what are some of the things that we could do to? You said you've got the PPE under control. Do y'all have your PPE equipment now, or?
We were lucky to get a delivery this past week from. We're part of a accountable care organization, Aledade, and they had arranged for us to get a lot of masks, but the masks for the patients, not for us. So we still have a shortage of N95 masks. We were lucky that one of the up-and-coming Medicaid companies that's trying to get into the managed care space, Centene, sent us a bunch of masks because I'm on their board. So they said, okay, let's see what we can do for our people. So we got a few from them, 35, but every bit helps. But we still haven't had a good amount of N95s come to us.
I've got some. I got a backlog order. I'm not a backlog order. They over delivered in one of the facilities.
Well, we'll be talking.
So we'll talk after this because they're looking for they got to make a little bit of money because they paid for them, but they overloaded. They got bought too many. So
Sounds good to me.
Dr. Arthur, I believe that we need N95 masks for every single day. Do you think we can carry the N95 mask for a week or maybe a month?
You have to because of the shortage. So we're using the protocols on disinfecting the masks. I put mine in the sunlight. I just put it on my dashboard and let the sun burn it up.
Oh, that's smart.
You could use peroxide.
That's what I do.
Yeah,
it's better to get it on the sun, basically.
What we don't know, but I don't think I've been looking, but I haven't seen a study on how the fibers degrade each time you do a disinfection and if the virus can get through. So once I see a study like that, then we'll know more. We just know that when people do the disinfection studies, there's no virus on it the next day. So it's clean from the virus, but how much is it protecting you from the virus? I haven't seen a study about that yet. So, but you do what you do. This is better than nothing, and it's better than running out.
Yeah, it's safer. It's safer than no mask at all. And so many people are making their own homemade mask. And I've been looking at some. They got some that are filled with some kind of carbon filter, and but it'd be nice to get some that just pop off and you throw in the wash machine once a week, or you put in your your dishwashing. Wherever you wash your dishes and sanitize them.
So I just got a brand new mask cover. There's a fashion house in Raleigh called Gray Chenier that just opened, and unfortunately coronavirus hit when they were about to open their line. So they sent me their haute couture leather mask cover so I could be in style.
I love it. That is so.
So you can still be fashionable and take care of coronavirus. So that was really cool.
Do you just wear it, or do you have to put another one under it?
Oh, you have to wear an N95 under it.
Okay.
For me, at least, with the work that I do, of course. But I'm using that when I'm out in the community.
There you go. I just hope that they're putting another one under it, not just wearing the fancy part. But
right. No, I'm putting my N95 under it. And amazingly, I thought the leather would keep me from breathing, but actually I could breathe pretty good through it.
That's nice to know. That's really nice to know. I'm looking at alternatives. I still like Darth Vader's mask, because it covers my hair, it kind of clips on, and, I'm good. I just need to be able to breathe. But I think Darth Vader was on it because he's also got that laser. And I was wondering, why does he have that laser saber? Now I know. So now we got the breathing mask that's really containable, and the lasers to kill the germs that are out there, right? Because we know that the lasers kill the germs. So they say, is that true?
No, that's for social distancing. The laser.
Who's going to stay near? Yeah, who's going to stay near me with a saber, right? But,
and it's also for when social unrest occurs because people have been locked up too much.
See, that's what I'm afraid of. I'm not the virus is almost contained. I'm afraid of the crazy people when they get out.
For Dr. Arthur, I think that people they should do the haircut, and they should, I think, clean their beard as well during the COVID. Because
I had a beard before all this, but I needed my mask to fit to be able to filter, so gone. It was a nice fashion statement when I cut my hair a lot shorter because I knew I wasn't going to get a haircut for a month and a half. So So this is not the same haircut.
It's very stylish. I kind of like the new haircut he's got. I noticed it the day he showed it. I'm like, wow, did you go to a salon? It looks great. He's like, no, I did it myself. But no, these are just things I guess we have to think about. That's what I keep telling people. You know, it's one thing you go out with all of this on, but when I get home, I'm going to have to shower or do something with my hair because it's going to get in my hair. It's going to get on my outer clothes. I can throw in the laundry room and sanitize them because I have a sanitizer in there. But all of these other parts of I guess we're just going to have to shower when we get home.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because your hair, I mean, that scares me too, because I got a lot of it. It keeps growing. I can't get it cut right now. So
I think the best COVID preventive look is what Willy's having without hairs. You are good to go, basically.
bald is bad. He's bringing out the bald. Bald is bad. That's right.
I'm going to get my Willy haircut tomorrow.
There you go. It's easy from what I hear. But yeah, we're going to make bald is bad look because
Dr. Arthur, we have Dr. David joining us from
David,
Hollywood. Good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
How are things in your research world? Share a little bit with us.
Well, my research world is I've got a camera on my face, but what you can't see is my articles about quercetin. So there's a whole nutritional world out there that I'm just starting to get into. It's not my real research world. I'm waiting for my research world to be resurrected after 16 years in limbo.
So what are some of the things that you're learning about with what we're dealing with right now? You had some interesting things, you know, you've shared some success stories of the asthma treatments working well with COVID patients. Are there some other findings that you're finding out?
Well, it seemed, I mean, the problem here in Miami is that we don't have testing. And I'm not sure what it's like in Raleigh, but so, I mean, there's some people with classic symptoms. I just came across one this morning, and she actually got tested yesterday, but it'll be next week sometime before we ever hear about it. Meanwhile, you have to treat her for something. And so I'm using quercetin for her because of this asthma patient that I'm waiting on his antibodies to send off his case report. But until I got the asthma patient, I was treating everybody with prednisone as if they were asthma patients. And that didn't really work with the asthma guy. I mean, he did horribly on even high-dose prednisone. He's still suffering from the acne from 120 a day of prednisone. But it didn't do anything for his for the burning in his chest and chest pain and shortness of breath. And whereas quercetin, a couple doses made it go away. So I now think, since quercetin is so harmless, and people have been excited about quercetin for ages because it's a great antioxidant and looks like it should be very helpful. It's just been very hard to show that it's useful for anything. Now it looks like there are all these quercetin researchers who, if I just email them, maybe they'll start banging their drums for quercetin in the setting of COVID-19. It's clear that you can't get anywhere without a team of like-minded fanatics. And so they're the vaccine fanatics, and they seem to control everything we hear. There were the quarantine sequestration fanatics who've been running the show up to now. But I don't honestly know, even if quercetin works, which I'm convinced it works, I'm taking it myself. I don't know how to get word out, honestly. And even though it seems to me like everybody needs to take something like it if the states are reopening.
What is your thoughts on that, Dr. Art? How does one get the word out if they've got success of certain data? Because you mentioned something too about data just not being presented well.
Oh, well, first of all, the terrible thing about our current medical research system is it's money based. And you're not going to get any research out there unless there's a product behind it or there's a surgery behind it. So there's a huge bias right now in the way research is presented. So yeah, exactly. Follow, as one of my instructors in finance taught me, follow George Washington. Well, that's Benjamin. If you follow George Washington, then that's how you get the research put out there. But, for instance, how much have you heard about what I've talked about hypnosis? Very little, but hypnosis has been out there for a long time. So yes, I agree with you that needs to be published. It needs to be put out there. The first thing is case reports, as you're putting out. And then once the case reports get a lead, then you get a randomized study, or you put some people on it, some people not. And hopefully the medical community looks at it. But the problem is the medical community mainly looks at what's in the journal because it's been put up there by a drug company. But this is the type of stuff where it'll get out there, because when people see, oh, there's good information on the show, that doctor gives good information, then it'll take a spread. Because I was talking about it the last time. The Mediterranean diet is what I recommend all my patients when they're healthy. Oh, yeah. Aside from, the weight loss diets and the portion control diets, Mediterranean and the capers and the things that contain the substances you're talking about are excellent antioxidants, and life expectancy is longer if you eat a Mediterranean diet, which is high in capers. So I fully agree that the evidence is already out there. You just have to prove it, but you're not going to get it through the usual biased, commercialized system of medical information right now.
Well, it's like you don't see them pushing out commercials to eat more oranges, but they'll push out eat more Pringles, right? Or just goofy commercials of drink more Coke, which Coke to me just, I enjoy a good Coke whenever I can, but it can become very addictive, but it just turns you into one big blob.
What makes me sick is in the journals right now, I see more articles on the financial impact of coronavirus on medical systems and all. And I still haven't seen many articles on the care of a coronavirus patient after the hospital.
I haven't either. I haven't heard about it. I have not heard one report from any recovery patients.
And that's what I need to know right now.
So what exactly, are they signing a waiver when they get treated with COVID that they don't talk to the press and they don't talk to anybody? Are they signing?
Not that I know of.
Because the only thing we heard was, there's one or two people who were like, oh, thanks to Donald Trump, I'm taking this hydroxychloroquine and I'm cured. That was the only two patients I heard.
Yep. I've not heard one. Well, that's the thing. Those studies are out there and they're showing good promise, and they're showing, it's still, they're not up to par as far as a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. But the ethical issue is, do you do randomization and control studies and not give the medication to someone when there's a lot of evidence there that the case studies are showing that it works? Right. So we're in a catch-22 there, because we're in a crisis. People are dying, but do you really put people in a control group where they don't get the medication and let them die?
And also, where you talk about hypnotizing people, a lot of doctors are unfortunate up in New York area, and the patients are dying at a massive amount of rate, that to the point that some of the doctors are unable and incapable of dealing with it. And one committed suicide, an EMT committed suicide because it was, I guess, more than what they could handle. Maybe they had other problems, but is there something that we can do, maybe even in a meditation state, to help maybe hypnotize ourselves to not be so overwhelmed with this?
Just any meditation, even just 1 minute a day is all it takes. Breathing 4 breaths in a row. I think Dr. Wheel in Arizona taught the 4-7-8 breathing technique. That's what I use. I'll do it for 4 rounds and my shoulders will drop instantly. But I'm lucky because I've hypnotized myself to be able to get an instant relaxation from that. But here's the problem. A lot of, we are taught in medicine to suck it up, just be tough. You're going to deal with this. You just have to suck it up. And that's not good right now. You can't just suck it up. You hold all of that in, and then you go home and maybe perform some emotional abuse on your family members. You can't do that. So 1 minute of deep breathing will clear your brain from all the chatter of, oh my goodness, my coronavirus, my life, my finances. You have to learn to quiet your brain. And the problem is a lot of people in medicine don't have the muscle memory for that. So meditation and relaxation is a muscle memory system. It's just like a sport. If you're good at a sport, the first time you swung a golf club or a baseball bat, the ball went all over the place. It didn't go straight or point at right field when you're Babe Ruth and the ball goes right to right field and you hit a home run. It takes practice and muscle memory. Meditation is the same. The first time you meditate, your body's going to be tight and your brain's going to be chattering the whole time. After a month of practicing just for 1 minute or 60 seconds, your brain is quiet and your shoulders drop. But you have to learn the muscle memory for that 1 minute before you can go to 2 minutes or 3 minutes. We're not asking people to be Buddhist monks and shave their head like Willie and whip themselves and do it for 7 days straight. You can't, they practice that for years. Americans, the American version of meditation I teach is sit down and shut up for a minute, because that's what Americans respond to. Punk rock version of meditation. Sit down and shut up and just be quiet. And
a rap song.
exactly. It's a little bit like heavy fisted, but when you do it for a month, all of a sudden your chatter stops for a whole minute. And then we can get to 2 minutes, then 3 minutes, then 5 minutes. Then all of a sudden you can do it for an hour. And then I don't know if you saw the movie that just came out that has all this controversy. It's called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And it's a meditation video on how you can contact UFOs to show up in your backyard when you meditate.
I'm in. No drugs involved. That's good. Because you can adjust your mental state of mind. And, it's funny you say that, because when I first started my prayer sessions, when I first did the lockdown, because I started before the U.S. did, I decided to do prayer every day. And it was hard to shut my brain out, right? My brain was going everywhere where it should. And I would kept going, stop that. Stop, pray. I had to keep telling myself to pray. Mm-hmm. It's funny how you say, because your shoulders do kind of like you get this, I can do a 30-minute now without my brain going everywhere all the time. It was hard. I will tell you what, hard to do. But I don't bring my phone in there. Everything's gone. Everything's out.